お母さんがなるべく体を動かしてくれって言ってるから、エクササイズ。
To direct the education, well-being, and faith options of their children.
Jenna Ellis in the morning, weekdays at 7 Central on American Family Radio.
What's most important to you when it comes to choosing your financial advisor? Someone who's aligned with your biblical values? How about someone who will take the time to explain your options? Certified Kingdom Advisors are professionals who meet high standards in competence and integrity, and have been trained to offer biblical financial advice. To find a Certified Kingdom Advisor in your area, visit faithfi.com and click Find a CKA.
We are grateful for support from Eventide Investments on the Faith and Finance program. Eventide's approach to values-based investing is grounded in the belief that humankind was created in the image of God, with intrinsic dignity, value, and worth. Eventide calls this investing that makes the world rejoice. More information is available at eventideinvestments.com. That's eventideinvestments.com.
Finance here on American Family Radio. I'm Rob West. We're taking your calls and questions here in our final segment. I've got some lines open for your financial question. Call right now, 800-525-7000. Again, that's 800-525-7000. We'd love to hear from you. Hey, some news out today from the Treasury Department. They've announced that the Series I bonds will pay 5.27% annual interest from today through April of 2024. So that's almost an increase of an entire 1 point from the previous 6-month rate of 4.3% annualized, which was put in place last May. Now, of course, the I-bond interest is tied to the rate of inflation, so that new 5.27 interest rate is the fourth highest I-bond rate since 1998. Now, does that mean you should run out and buy an I-bond? No, not so fast. Here's the reality is that's basically comparable to what you can get in a 1-year CD, or even close to what you could get in a high-yield savings account. So I think given that, and because the fact that you'd have to leave the money in the I-bond for a year, you can't touch it for 12 months, you can only put in up to $10,000 per year per person, but also you'll pay a 3-month penalty if you pull that money out in less than 5 years. Given all of that, I think you're probably, with your short-term money, with 1 to 3 year durations, you're probably better off putting that in a high-yield savings or a CD, because then you won't have that 3-month penalty. And I expect that the next rate change, which will come 6 months from now in April of 2024, will be lower, just given the fact that the Fed is so focused on bringing inflation down, and these I-bond rates with their composite interest rate is affected in part by CPI. And again, if CPI is headed down, you probably are not looking at a rate higher than 5.27. We're probably looking at something lower. So interesting data out. A lot of folks expected that 4.3 was going to continue to drop, and so interesting to see that it ticked up nearly a full percentage point. But Again, I think for the reasons that I mentioned, I'd probably think about other options as you go out and look for compelling rates, which there are today, but for your short-term money. Hopefully that's helpful to you. All right, let's take some calls and questions today. We've got about 10 minutes left in the program. We'd love to get to as many questions as we can. The number to call is 800-525-7000. You can call right now. Back to the phones. Let's go to Ohio. Hi, Jean. Go ahead.
Hi. Hello. So my question is, I have 3 rental properties that are paid off, but I want to buy another one, and I didn't know what's the best way to use the equity from the houses or what to do.
Yeah, that's a great question. So you said the current properties that you have are free and clear. Is that right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Plus my home. So.
Yeah, very good.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the most cost-effective is going to be to get a first mortgage on your primary residence. I wouldn't do that, just because I'd like to view these rental properties as a business, keep them separate from your personal finances. So if something were to come out of left field that created a financial hardship for you, you're not putting your primary residence at risk. So I would probably just get a mortgage on that next property as you're able, as you find it. Now, do you have money to put down for a down payment, or would you need 100% of the purchase price through borrowing?
I would probably need 100% purchase price because I need some to do any repairs or good stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
So I was looking at one that was going up for on an auction here, and but then it's scary with what the prices of houses are. So trying to balance that out as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's a challenging environment because prices are still high. We've got low inventory, and then we've got these, interest rates that are really high as well. Because on a second property, a rental property, you're probably looking at potentially 9% plus with that interest rate. So I think that's the key, is just seeing if you can make the numbers work, because you may need to borrow from a couple of your properties in order to make this happen. And you're just going to need to really count the cost of the debt service, the renovations, and just look at, what you're throwing off in rental income. Now, are all of these 3 properties that you currently have rented?
Yes.
Okay.
And I have, my renter's always good and they're easy to rent.
Great. And are you relying on that rental income for your personal expenses?
No, but we no, we are not. No. But
Okay.
with that in mind, my husband's, so he's 62, and so, kind of looking ahead to retirement, of having, part of that income as our retirement income.
Sure. Yeah. And how far away is that?
Well, he'd like to this day, but it's probably 3 years.
Okay.
3, 4 years, but again, you can't just retire and be done. You have to, have something else to do.
Yeah,
And,
yeah. Sure.
So kind of just playing all those things in my mind and trying to decide what's the best way. Do I just stay content with what I have, having them paid off, and
Yeah.
saving that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the key, is just recognizing it's a challenging environment right now, and you've got a great situation because you're completely debt-free. You've got these 3 properties that are throwing off a good income, and, you obviously have demonstrated that, you can be a landlord and make it work for you. I think the question is whether you want to, during the remaining working years, try to add to this portfolio, and in order to do that, you're going to have to, take on some debt. So you probably end up with a couple of mortgages on 2 of the 3 properties to get to the number that you need in order to buy this next one, unless, some of these are worth a good bit more and you could do it all on one of the properties. But, obviously you'd have the ability to sell down the road. I wouldn't see a kind of a housing crash. I mean, we don't have a bubble situation, simply because the fact that we're still short on homes in this country by 2 to 3 million. And, the millennials are now reaching age 30 and they're buying single family homes, and people are working remotely more frequently. And so they're moving out of the urban areas to the the suburbs, and they're buying houses instead of renting apartments in big metropolitan cities. So I think given all of that, you're probably not going to see a big decline in this housing market, in between now and retirement. I think the question is, are you all wanting to try to build out that portfolio? And, the good news is you can service the debt out of the rental income, and that's not taking anything away from you. So somebody else is helping you build equity. And the key is just kind of how this all plays out over the next 5 years, which potentially would give you, a fourth asset in this mix, especially if you could, try to pay that off as quickly as possible. So, I don't see any problem with your plan here, Gene, and I would, use the rental properties to get the funding to do it. I just think you need to really ask yourself, is this something else we want to take on? And kind of given everything we know about our finances and the state of the world, are we comfortable, having this debt? And I think you all need to be in lockstep with each other about that before you do it.
And I am more than my husband is. He's like not a risk taker, and
yeah,
I am. And so
sure.
then that kind of, throws a little monkey in the wrench. And, but...
Well, one of my rules for borrowing is only borrow where the economic return is better than the economic cost. That certainly could be the case here. The second is that there's no other way to do it, and it doesn't sound like there is. If you're going to buy it, you're going to have to borrow. And then third, you have spousal unity. So that one is probably the only question mark. I would make sure you have spousal unity before you do it. But if you guys decided to do it, I think that's the way to do it. But I would just, pray about it, talk about it before you guys make that decision, okay?
All right. Okay. Thanks for your help.
All right, Gene. God bless you. Thanks for calling today. Let's head to Oklahoma. Hi, Zach. Go ahead.
Hi, sir. My name is Zach. I was calling. I've got a quick question about. I have two previous employer retirement accounts. One is a 401k with $15,000. The other is an IRA with $1,200. I'm wanting to just withdraw this money and use it to pay off debt. What's my best way to do that for at least pay life?
Yeah. What is your age?
39.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's expensive money because you're going to have the 10% penalty. So, you're talking $16,000. So that's, right off the top, you're going to have to pay $1,600 in penalties. And then that $16,000 is going to be added to your taxable income. So let's say, you're going to end up paying, let's call it 32%, maybe. That's around $5,000 of this goes to the government. So I guess the question would just be, is there any other way to pay off this debt and keep this money growing in that tax-deferred environment so you've got it 30 years from now and it's worth a lot more than it is today? And I think the other issue is, have you corrected the issue or problem that got you into debt in the first place? And often using a lump sum to pay it off just kind of takes the pressure off and doesn't force us to address the real problem. And again, I have no idea what the debt is or why you have it, but if it was consumptive spending beyond your means, I'd want to make sure you really, considered your budget and whether you've got a spending plan that you can live within, so that you don't, call me a year from now or 6 months from now and say, Rob, the IRA and the 401k are gone, and guess what? The debt's back. So if it's credit card debt, I would contact first our friends at ChristianCreditCounselors.org and see if you could get those interest rates down and get on a payment plan and work on your budget and get that, paid off 80% faster with a lot less toward interest. Again, ChristianCreditCounselors.org, and leave these intact. Obviously, if there's something else going on, maybe that is the right thing to do, but just keep in mind, I want you to fix the problem that led to the debt in the first place, and I'd love for you to avoid taking that 30+% haircut on this money as it comes out. I hope that's helpful, Zach, as you think and pray about this. Thanks for being on the program. That's going to do it for us today, folks. So thankful for Jim and Robert and Devin. Couldn't do it without them. I'm Rob West. This has been Faith and Finance on American Family Radio. Have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
90.5 KTXG Greenville, Dallas. clear that God is the one who gives life. It's a gift that we shouldn't take for granted. Unfortunately, there are those who have a different view of life's value. They would fight for the right to kill an unborn baby and sneer at anyone who believes that human life begins at conception. Life is precious to God, so let's continue to defend the sanctity of life. A reminder from AFA.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. FBI Director Christopher Wray and DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas warned that there is an increased risk of terrorist violence on U.S. soil, and one adversary in particular is causing the most concern. Eric Shawn has more.
There are warnings that Iran could launch a terrorist attack right here at home. And you know, they've tried it before. The theocratic regime in Tehran has not only called for death to America, but death to their opponents, even if they are on U.S. soil. In 2013, an Iranian admitted he did plan with Iranian officials to kill the Saudi Arabian ambassador to the United States, Abdullah Jabbar, by bombing a popular Washington, D.C. restaurant in Georgetown when the ambassador was dining there. And last year, the feds busted up an Iranian plot to assassinate former Trump National Security Advisor John Bolton. And Tehran has threatened the lives of other former top-level federal U.S. officials.
DHS Secretary Mayorkas was questioned by Republican Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri.
There have been almost 170 people on the terrorist watch list just this last year who we've apprehended. When you systematically disregard the laws of this country, when you systematically mislead the American people and lie, as you said, lie and lie and lie to Congress and the American people, you're not doing your job and you should be removed.
A Senate hearing on a supplemental funding package to assist Israel in its war against Hamas descended into chaos Tuesday.
ヨウさん頑張ってなるべく体を動かして動かない筋肉を動かすことで体が回復するから お母さんはそれを願ってんだよお父さんの体が動くようにはい忘れ物ないように
His kids. The mother's breast cut off. The girl's foot amputated. The boy's fingers cut off before they were executed. And then their executioners sat down and had a meal. That's what this society is dealing with. And no nation could tolerate that.
Nonprofits continue to help Jewish people in Israel. Sergei Brazov of Chosen People Ministries had this to say on AFR's Exploring the Word program.
I joined Chosen People Ministries here on the ground, working, delivering food for elders. We are working as much as possible with Holocaust survivors. We had a very big hub in the city of Sderot of Holocaust survivors, and unfortunately, 6 of those people were murdered. And now we evacuated them, helped them to get evacuated to the Dead Sea area so they can be safe and farther away from the fighting.
Newly elected Speaker of the House, Representative Mike Johnson of Louisiana, responded to liberals and those in the media trashing him for his Christian faith. Here's a sample of how he's being treated by the media.
When I was reading about this horrible shooting in Maine, and I heard, we don't know much about the guy yet, but apparently he heard voices. And I thought, is he that different than Mike Johnson?
The Bible doesn't just inform his worldview, it is his worldview. In fact, during his first speech in his new job, Johnson suggested that his election as Speaker was an act of God. Essentially what you'd expect from a religious fundamentalist.
But the Speaker says despite the media's hatred of Christianity, he will not back down.
Look, there are entire industries that are built to take down public leaders, effective political leaders like me. I'm not surprised by that. I mean, it comes with the territory. It doesn't bother me at all. I just wish they would get to know me. I'm not trying to establish Christianity as the national religion or something. That's not what this is about. It's just disgusting. I mean, that is absurd.
Employers posted 9.6 million job openings in September, up from 9.5 million in August. Layoffs fell, and the number of Americans quitting their jobs was virtually unchanged. The September openings are down from a record 12 million in March 2022, but remain high by historical standards. American Family News is online at afn.net and Download the AFN mobile app. I'm Rusty Q.
What does the American Family Association stand for? AFA upholds the truth that all human beings, including the unborn, are created in the image of God and are worthy of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. These values and more are part of our mission to inform, equip, and activate individuals to strengthen the moral foundations of our culture. We also support the church. We want to be a leading organization in biblical worldview training for cultural transformation. Thank you for standing with us. Welcome to Today's Issues, offering a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Today's Issues, the name of this show, on this Wednesday, November the 1st, 2023. Joining me in studio to co-host the program is Ed Vitagliano. Good morning, Ed.
Good morning, Tim.
And good morning, Fred Jackson.
Good morning to you, Tim.
Fred, of course, in addition to co-hosting this program, leads our American Family Radio News team. And how long have you guys been pumping out the news over there now?
27 years.
27 years.
Mm-hmm.
Since you came down from Canada.
Yeah, I came down. I'm 26 and change now. It was actually a guy by the name of Bill Fancher was the first guy that your dad hired to get it going, and then I came in shortly after that. So,
like a polar vortex, Fred came down from Canada.
I just remember my dad said, "You know, we need some diversity here, and where can we get that? Let's get a Canadian dude."
Yes. And Fred is married to a Mississippi gal.
Right.
Yes.
So
worked out.
Us Yankees, we have some smarts. I married a Mississippi girl. He's a D.
Yeah. Anyway, 27. Wow, nearly 27 years. Tell folks what the American Family Radio News team provides.
Yeah. We provide newscasts that you hear at the top of every hour here at American Family Radio. By the way, we have over 100 affiliate stations beyond our 179 stations that we have across the country. Yeah. We also have more than 100 affiliates. That's other Christian stations that are taking.
That's wonderful.
American Family Radio News. And we have a terrific website, afn.net. And if you want your own kind of summary of the day's news, go to afn.net over in the right-hand corner, sign up. Just put your email in there. That's all we ask. Once a day, Monday through Friday, we will send you the summary of the major news stories of the day. And we have a news service because we believe the news should be told from a Christian perspective. And that, right now, we love Israel. We don't make any apologies for that. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the big issues right now. If you want to be brought up to date on this current big world story.
A lot of secular news services, they censor out the Christian news.
Do they ever? Well,
or present Christians in a bad light all the time.
Well, the hostility towards Christians and Christian values. You look at the new House Speaker, what he's facing, Mike Johnson.
Yeah.
He's an unapologetic, born-again believer.
Right.
And the attacks that he's been under. So, to take that story for an example, the story that we're doing on Mike Johnson is, go.
Yeah. Absolutely.
He is out there, and he is not ashamed of the gospel. He's not ashamed to be called a Bible-believing Christian.
Hey, so the bottom line on the daily news briefing, this is what I want people to go and sign up for if they haven't already. So, to be clear, because that's what Corinne Jean-Pierre, she's...
I just want to be clear.
I look to her
Let me be clear.
For clearance, and she's providing a way to be clear. And she does that often during her press conferences. She says, I want to be clear, so I'll muddy the water more.
Yeah, that's right.
But anyway, the news service we provide is 5 days a week, weekdays, and it's once a day. We'll send you a composite of the news provided by our own news service, which you lead.
That's correct.
There's no fluff. We're not selling your name to anybody or your email to anybody.
Nope.
It's just simply used for that and that purpose alone, and only be once a day, Monday through Friday, usually in the middle of the afternoon.
Yes.
So how can people subscribe to that?
Go to the website, afn.net. Up in the right-hand corner, you're going to find a place there where you can just click on it, put your email address in there, and you will start getting this once a day.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you for being clear.
Yep.
Fred. All right, what's the first news story, Fred?
Well, Israeli airplanes, fighter jets are on the attack once again in Israel today. They are, once again, they have sent some missiles into what may be called in the mainstream media refugee camp. But what we're finding out from various sources that beyond being a so-called refugee camp, and that is questionable, it was a headquarters for Hamas terrorists. And yesterday, Israel went in there and they found this Hamas command. They managed to take out one of the Hamas leaders who they say was also responsible for the October 7th massacre in Israel, which is why all of this got started. But also they took out more militants, more terrorists. But underneath, you're going to see pictures today of collapsed apartment buildings. So when you think refugee camp, you may think of tents. No, this was a headquarters for Hamas, but they called it a refugee camp. And also what Israel discovered underneath that building were bunches of Hamas tunnels. And they say one of the reasons that the buildings collapsed because of all these tunnels that were underneath. This morning on Fox and Friends, they interviewed Mark Regev. He is an advisor to Prime Minister Netanyahu and also a former ambassador. He noted that some of the videos, and most of the videos coming out of Gaza, are produced by Hamas. He noticed that most of the videos coming out from people scrambling around this collapsed building in this so-called refugee camp were mostly young males of military age. That's an important part of this story. So here is former Ambassador Mark Regev, cut number 8.
The Jabalia refugee camp, a lot of people have moved to the south, the vast majority of people. And I noticed in the pictures that we just saw in your report, the people around the crater where our strike had happened were mostly young men of military age. And it didn't look like a lot of innocent civilians to me. But what I can tell you is this. If you are part of the Hamas leadership, if you are part of the command structure that was responsible for the rapes, the murders, the beheadings, the mass shootings, the massacres that they perpetrate in Israel, we will find you and we will take you out.
So who was that gentleman?
That was Mark Regev, and he is a former ambassador, Israeli ambassador, but also now as a senior advisor to Prime Minister Netanyahu.
Well, you know, the fact is that Hamas, you know, they're being portrayed by a lot of people in the Western media, by politicians, as being freedom fighters. I'm looking at a story from the Jerusalem Post. Hamas official Ghazi Hamad said, and he was being interviewed by a Lebanese news outlet, he said, "We will repeat the October 7th attack time and time again until Israel is annihilated. We must remove that country." That's the mentality of Hamas, the group that Israel is facing. So these people who say Israel needs to call a ceasefire. Okay, even Hillary Clinton, I heard her saying, you cannot declare a ceasefire against Hamas. They will simply use that time to bring in more weapons, strengthen their tunnels, increase their plans to infiltrate Israel. This is a fight to the death between Israel and Hamas. And for Westerners in the safety of their Starbucks while they're drinking their lattes, okay, to say Israel ought to declare a ceasefire, they have no understanding of what it means to fight to the death. That's what Israel's involved in.
And Ed, to your point, and we want to put a warning out, the next piece of audio that we're going to use is very graphic. It is of the Secretary of State of the United States, Antony Blinken. He testified before a hearing yesterday, Senate hearing, and it's about asking for more money for aid for Israel. That's one of the major topics. And he was addressing the desperate situation that Israel is facing, and it's just what you alluded to, Ed, in quoting this Hamas leader. We in the West cannot understand the mindset of these people. And so yesterday, Antony Blinken, in response to, all the pro-Hamas demonstrations occurring in this country, sadly, he wanted to remind people that it was a massacre on October the 7th. So, folks, if you're listening right now, you may have little ones. You may want to turn down your radio for a while. But this is an example of what the Hamas terrorists did to one family on that day on October 7th on one of the kibbutz that these Hamas terrorists attacked. Cut number 5.
A family of 4, a young boy and girl, 6 and 8 years old, and their parents around the breakfast table. The father, his eye gouged out in front of his kids. The mother's breast cut off. The girl's foot amputated. The boy's fingers cut off before they were executed. And then their executioners sat down and had a meal. That's what this society is dealing with. And no nation could tolerate that.
We hesitated. We talked about whether we should play this, but folks, you have to understand this is the kind of people that Israel says we've got to put an end to this. Because they will, as this Hamas commander told this interview, they will do this again.
This is not a border dispute between Israel and Hamas. This is Hamas on an extermination campaign.
Yes.
And once again, Jews are in the crossfire.
Yes.
And for anyone in this country to suggest that Israel ought to stop what it's doing, it's either because they hate the Jews or they are willingly blind to what's going on there. But I'll tell you one thing, Israel ain't blind to it. And they are going to finish this task because their survival is at stake.
Yeah. Appears to me, like you guys are saying here, you mentioned the word death match, didn't you? Or fight to the death?
Yes.
I think you said. That's what Israel, it appears to me that's what Israel, that's the approach they're taking of this time, is that we must clean out the nest of vipers, so to speak. We cannot allow Hamas to exist any longer anywhere near us, right? So they're doing what they have to do, and they're saying to the world, they wouldn't say it exactly like this, although Netanyahu the other day, Benjamin Netanyahu basically said, we're going to do what we have to do. They're basically saying the world can condemn us if they want to, but we're going to do what we have to do to protect our people and our land and our families, and whatever. We don't care what the opinion of the world is.
I'm looking at, we have several news feeds that come into our studio during our show. I'm looking at the BBC coverage of the war here. First of all, they call it the Israel-Gaza war,
right?
As if Israel started this, not
Gaza's
the Hamas,
right?
Israeli war. But their focus has been on hospitals, 50,000 pregnant women without services, patients cannot be moved. You know what? Because these BBC, CNN, and these other liberal outlets, they're never really challenged on their approach to a story like this. I want to ask the BBC, well, why don't you ask Hamas to surrender? If Hamas is worried about the people in the hospital,
there you go.
All right, ask Hamas to surrender. Turn over the people, the leaders who are responsible for their attack. And you know what they would say? The BBC reporters would say, that's unreasonable to expect Hamas to surrender to Israel. Well, you know what? It's unreasonable to expect Israel to declare a ceasefire.
Right.
But they don't ask questions like that.
And if Hamas cared about their own people, they would send their army out, so to speak, to fight Israel and tell the women and children and the elderly, you go down to the south part or down to the border. You get out of here because it's mano-mano time.
Right.
But no, this is what Hamas does. First of all, you notice how almost all of them have face coverings?
Yes.
They have face coverings, and you wonder, why is that? Well, they don't want the Israeli army, I guess, or the Israeli intelligence to know who they are.
Right.
Number one. And that's a sign to me of people who they just don't want to be identified.
Right.
So,
like Antifa, people like that.
Yeah, they always cover their faces, like Antifa, and so they always cover their faces, as if you're not. Anyway, so about this situation, like you're talking about, so if Hamas cared about their own people, they would tell the innocent people, the women, children, the elderly, you leave. We're going to go. We're at war with Israel
because we're here for you.
But yes, but you know what they do? No, they don't do that. They build their operations, their terrorist operations, under hospitals,
right?
Yeah, under apartment buildings,
right.
So they actually use their own people as human shields, so that if Israel attacks and there are people killed, like women, children, and the elderly, they parade them out and say, look what these horrible people did, these Israelis did to these innocent people.
Right.